All right, everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of the official Paris Blockchain Week podcast. Today's guest is Jonathan Farnell, CEO of Freedex. He has worked in the fintech and blockchain sectors, and he has had leadership roles at eToro, Binance, and Freedex. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you.
So how did you get into the crypto and blockchain space, and how did that lead you to your current role as the CEO of Freedex?
It's an interesting journey, and I kind of fell into crypto by accident. So going back a few years, back to 2013, myself and some three other co-founders, we established a business in the UK, an electronic money institution business, which is a license by the Financial Conduct Authority. So think of it a bit like a bank, a challenger bank. And this was around the time of other companies like Revolut and Monzo. We all kind of started out at the same time. We all had great ambitions. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to launch a bank-like solution to folks who were underbanked and underserved. And we did that. We were doing it for a few years and everything was going well. We bootstrapped the business ourselves, but it was tough to scale up. So then we thought, right, we need to get some external money here. And then, out of good luck, a company called eToro came and said, we want to buy you.
Wow.
So that was it. So we sold the business in 2019 to eToro. eToro took effectively our biggest asset, which was our license. And then from there, we built eToro's fiat on and off ramp, and we built their eToro Money debit card.
Wow.
As part of the transaction, I stayed with eToro for about 18 months. But whilst I was there, my previous experience in crypto was just buying bits and pieces of Bitcoin there, not holding on for dear life and selling it when I'd made like 20%, thought I was doing well. But whilst at eToro, they said, look, you're a compliance guy. You can look after eToro X, which is eToro's institutional and custodian business based out of Gibraltar.
Wow.
So I had to very quickly catch up with crypto regulation, which I did. So thank you to eToro for kind of getting me where I am today. And then from eToro, I left and went to Binance.
Wow. That is amazing. That's an amazing career trajectory.
It is.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Freedex and why everybody should know about this amazing company.
Well, Freedex is first of all, I love working with really smart people. And though I might not be one myself, I recognize when I'm surrounded by smart, cool people. And so Freedex, the team itself, we're made up of people with a lot of experience. So some of us are from Binance. We've got a colleague from Upbit, and then we've also got people from traditional finance, from companies like Deutsche Bank as well.
Wow.
And what we are trying to do is, because we've had all this experience with other exchanges, we're trying to say, what can we do that's different? So we've really drilled down into the detail and said, maybe what some of those other businesses that are doing extremely well,
yeah,
what can we do that may be a little bit better? So what we're focusing on is the user experience. So that means heavy investment into things like the UX, the UI, customer services as well. Just trying to make that bit of a difference as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we really want to dive into navigating the complexity of licensing and regulation in Web3 with you.
Okay.
Are you ready? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to first talk about balancing innovation and regulation. So Web3 projects often face a dilemma between innovation and regulation. How do you see the balance between staying compliant while still being innovative?
It's a really good question. So I think we're at the point at the moment where we can all see that regulation for the last few years has played catch up. And we see new regulatory frameworks being rolled out. So a good example is Europe. We've got MiCA regulation, the framework there. Many people are still unsure of how that operates. And that's why we still get some firms work in the DeFi space still. And then you get other firms who may be offshore trying to use reverse solicitation to go into those territories where there may not be any license there, or there may be a license but they choose not to apply there and instead try and onboard customers through reverse solicitation, meaning there's no onshore marketing and trying to attract customers, rather the customers come to the exchange to sign up. So I think what's good is that as we see this rollout and this clarity about what regulatory frameworks are, we get companies and exchanges like ours now having a clearer view as to what those expectations are as well. And they can then start choosing maybe which country to go to, and how mature their organization is to be able to cope with some of those different regulatory frameworks as well. So we tend to, in crypto space, we tend to say you've got tier 1 regulators, tier 2, and some tier 3.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So how can Web3 projects use the principles of Web3 to their advantage while ensuring they remain compliant with regulations?
So first of all, I'm a big fan of DeFi. I totally understand it, but I think to believe that regulation won't touch DeFi is not true. We are moving into that regulated space. So what companies need to do is they need to understand, first and foremost, what they can do, which is unregulated. So that could be something as simple as offering still self-hosted wallets, where in effect they're acting like a software service provider, and customers are being the custodian of their own assets on, for example, their mobile phone. But they need to understand then when they start moving into that regulated space. And like as I just said, if they want to start offering, like, for example, exchange services in a centralized way, Web3 firms need to then go, okay, what licenses or registrations should we go for, and what are we able to firstly achieve, but then secondly maintain as well?
Yeah.
And there are certain probably territories which they should probably look to avoid at this stage, especially if they're new to the game, and those would be, again, places like Europe and the tier 1 regulators like Singapore, the UK.
Okay, no, that's amazing. So let's get into creativity as a key asset. How important is creativity in staying compliant? Do you think Web3 projects can leverage creativity to stay on the right side of regulatory bodies while still pushing the boundaries in the industry?
Absolutely. Again, there's a touch point when regulation kicks in, but what we have seen over the last few years, we've seen regulators trying to nurture creativity and innovation and working closely with industry as well. So there's that collaboration which is important. So I guess an example with that one would be, and it's not really used as much as what I expect, would be something like open banking. Mm-hmm. So open banking is a great initiative where companies can get their regulatory permissions, and they can enable customers effectively to see all their bank accounts and balances in one app.
Wow.
So there's like the sharing of the consent given by the customer to say, you can go into my bank and extract data and use that data for transactions or for gathering information for like KYC. So these are the kind of innovations which are working, and they are backed by the regulators as well.
That's amazing. So let's get into some of the biggest legal pitfalls in Web3. There are numerous legal pitfalls for Web3 projects. Why do some tokens end up being classified as securities?
Classified as securities. So let's roll the clock back. Let's go back, like, say, nearly 80 years, 79, 80 years ago, when we're talking about Howey, the Howey Test in the US. And this is where it's very difficult for Web3 projects to even consider this now. So, as we know, Howey sets out the test for whether a crypto token is indeed classed as a security. And that was based on a guy selling citrus fruits, selling pieces of land to investors. He would then rent that land back. They would grow fruit on there, and they would, whatever the revenue was from that fruit would be shared between Howey and the landowner. 80 years later, we're still applying those same rules to whether a crypto asset should be considered a security or not. And there are four aspects to the Howey Test, and those include was monetary investment made? Was it made into like a common enterprise? Was there an expectation of profit from that investment? and was that whole activity being undertaken by somebody else? And that's what's really got some projects into trouble. We see that, for example, with a few years ago with Ripple.
Yep.
When it was like the sale of XRP on the secondary market was fine, but to those institutions, it was considered a security. Where's that led us to? It's led us to a point where prior to the new administration, firms were just saying, let's just avoid the US. Let's not list our tokens over there because we might get in trouble with the Howey Test. If we're doing an ICO, an initial coin offering, let's not offer it to US customers, because the last thing we want to do is fall under security laws.
Right.
So there's all these little touch points, but we're trying to take these really dynamic Web3 projects, kind of measure those against the regulation, or a ruling which was 80 years ago related to lemons.
That is crazy. I didn't actually know the background of the Howey Test, but when you think about it, that actually seems super ridiculous. That is so crazy. So what are some of the key signs that a project might face this issue?
Well, again, if you go back to those four categorizations of what it, and you apply those, so was there an investment with money, with fiat, yes or no? Was there a common enterprise? So is there like a collective investment going on here?
Yeah.
Did the investor expect to make a profit? Tick, yes. And then was the activity being done by somebody else? So a few years ago there was a ruling that Bitcoin was not classified because, first of all, the Bitcoin project did not use public money to build the project out. And secondly, Bitcoin is supposed to be an equivalent of like a sovereign fund, like the US dollar. And US dollars or sovereign currencies are not considered an investment underneath US law.
Yeah.
But for all those projects which could potentially have that kind of feel to them, especially like those projects which have historically done an ICO, an initial coin offering, to raise funds and offered their tokens out to the public, that's when they could get caught. And again, that's why companies like, well, many companies have said, let's just avoid the US, which is bad for US customers.
Right. Yeah. You touched on this a little earlier, but DeFi is often viewed as untouchable. Is this a myth, or are DeFi protocols truly immune to regulatory scrutiny?
I don't think so. So, again, I'll talk about Europe, and so DeFi rules and DeFi protocols have been considered. You know, there was a period in time when there was quite a deep analysis of self-hosted wallets that you mentioned. Should they be regulated? Should they not? But I think more broadly, what we can say for certain is, without doubt, DeFi will be considered by regulators, because the whole notion of DeFi is great. You know, what does it mean? It means we're the removal of that centralized entity in the middle, and it's more peer-to-peer, and it's permissionless, and it's use of smart contracts. But again, there are some bad operators there which cause regulators to get involved, and what's a regulator's ultimate goal? Is to protect the markets, and it's consumer protection. So they will always look at DeFi to say, should that be regulated? But there are mechanisms that potentially the regulators could use to come up with collaborative ways. So rather than a top-down regulation that we see in centralized exchanges, there could be initiatives elsewhere as well. So for example, it could be voluntary self-regulation. And initiatives, as we know, like voluntary self-regulation, are already used in the TradFi space. So we see that in the US, and we see that in Switzerland as well.
Interesting.
So it can work, and it can have the same outcomes as well.
Yeah.
Without stifling innovation.
I love that. So KYC, AML compliance is crucial, but can be challenging in Web3. How should projects approach this to avoid legal problems down the road?
So again, let's move towards the centralized exchange space, where we know KYC is a regulatory requirement. It is what it is. It can't be avoided. And I think, as we know, we all go through KYC when we're going into most traditional aspects of banking. So you open a bank account, you go through KYC. So there's always a concern with projects that customers are going to be put off and they're not going to open an account, they're not going to trade because they have to scan the passport, they have to do a selfie. But we're all used to doing this anyway.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to look at, we need to look at other innovations which are out there as well. So which can maybe reduce some of the touch points that KYC bring about. I gave the example before of open banking.
Yeah.
That can really reduce the amount of data which a customer has to upload
Yeah.
to KYC. So there are some very cool projects out there using open banking, which is doing things very compliantly, meeting the regulations, but really reducing the kind of impact on the customer.
It's really, really exciting. All right, now we're going to get into the fun part of the interview, the lightning round. So we have some quick fire questions to keep things fun and light. The first one, chain or drain? How real is the tokenization of real world assets like real estate?
Wow, that's a good one. So I think when people talk about tokenization of real world assets, I hear them talking about property, which is great. But there's so much more to tokenization of real world assets than just that. So I live in Dubai, and we see a lot of tokenization projects there as well.
Yeah.
And effectively anything can be tokenized and put on the blockchain, which to me is really, really exciting. And I certainly think this is going to be huge in the future. So I've spoken with firms recently that are tokenizing things like uranium.
Wow.
Yeah. Forget about property. Uranium, precious stones, supercars, works of art.
Yeah.
So we can get to a state where, for example, you would be able to, if you wanted to, go and buy $100 worth of uranium if you wanted to.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because it's been tokenized into a crypto asset, and then you could maybe trade it on a secondary market, like a crypto exchange.
Wow.
So, whilst we talk about property and dividing a property up into whatever 1,000 or 10,000 little assets, property is just the start of it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So exciting. Space is evolving so quickly.
It is. It's crazy.
Second question: Satoshi or Sideshow? Is blockchain ready for quantum computing?
Oh, I think so. I think so. Yeah. I think those conversations are already taking place with some very smart people out there working on stuff like this right now.
I love it. I love it. All right, Ledger of Truth. What's one blockchain trend you secretly love but publicly question?
One blockchain
trend you secretly love but publicly question?
I would probably go back to, even though I'm going back on my word, saying I would say it's real world assets. So I've just bigged it up.
Yeah.
But I'm a true believer in it, and the reason is because I think there's too much focus at the moment on real world assets of property.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah. Everybody loves that use case, but
Yeah, there's so much more to it.
I love it. Uranium. I'm going to start looking into getting into some uranium
sure.
investing. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, off-chain confession. What's one unpopular blockchain or crypto opinion you actually believe?
So I guess it's all about crypto adoption. So I think even though crypto adoption is still low, it's what, 10, 12% of the world's population?
Yeah.
There are too many people who are in the space to make a quick buck. So they're not investing in products which are building, they're investing in meme coins and tokens like that.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And those guys are just playing the casino. And
Right.
as we know, there are so many bad actors. There are so many new tokens being minted and launched. You know, you get your pump and dump schemes, you get your honeypots.
Yeah.
We need to get people moving away from that, but maybe that's their entry point, and maybe there some guys, you know, bought Pepe tokens and suddenly turned $2,000 into $50,000, and then we'll hear them cry out, "When Lambo?" We hear this a lot,
Right.
But we want to start seeing people invest in those longer-term projects which have real utility to their tokens.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that one. So, wallet or walk it back? Do you think most traditional banking apps will have crypto wallets in the next 5 years?
Ooh, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. So, feels inevitable to me. But then again, here's the challenge. We see a lot of exchanges, including what we're going to be doing, which is going to be building out a banking solution. So I think with banks, it's going to be difficult, and I'm not sure if they're as agile to adapt and to bring in those new technologies. But you see the incumbents, the crypto exchanges saying, hey, we can get these licenses as well.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if we fight back against the banks.
Amazing. All right. Blockchain and AI. I love this. This is one of my favorite kind of new marriages in the space. But how important is AI to the future of blockchain? Or should I ask the question the other way around? How important is blockchain to the future of AI?
I think the two are inseparable now. So we talk about blockchain, this distributed ledger, the sharing of data, which is so important, this movement of and storage of data, and then AI comes in and does what? It can take that data and it can analyze it super quickly. So what does that do? We can have huge amounts of data which we can use AI then for to make good decisions. We can see, I expect to see this, well, we are seeing this in things like healthcare as well. So a user case may be, we've got patients' data. AI comes in and is able to match maybe patients who are looking for organ donors.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so this is not just in financial services. AI is going to be an integral part of the blockchain.
I love it. I love it. So Paris Blockchain Week Insights. Is this your first Paris Blockchain Week?
This is our first Paris Blockchain Week, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I was here 2 years ago. I hosted the Web3 Day.
Yeah.
I didn't come last year, but this year it just feels a lot more mature, just like very focused, which is really, really exciting. I'm just curious, what's the most surprising thing you've learned at Paris Blockchain Week this year so far? I mean, it's only the first day, but...
It's only first day, but you know, people talk in cycles in crypto. They're talking short-term cycles, so like bull market, bear market. People are talking now, is the bull market over? And it's like, has the bull market it really even started? Because you get some people saying it only started a few months ago. But what we see here is great innovation. We're talking about projects building infrastructure for the future, and that's everywhere. There's so much energy and talent talking about these game-changing opportunities.
Yeah,
that are coming along, and that's, you only have to walk in and you can feel that energy in the room.
Yeah, no, I can. Yeah, I love that. So, key takeaways. What's the one key takeaway from Paris Blockchain Week that everybody should be paying attention to right now?
I would say crypto is in its infancy. But if you've worked in crypto, you wouldn't say that, because you question why everybody's not involved in this. But in the mainstream, it's still in its infancy.
Yeah.
But there's some huge technologies which are coming our way.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit about real-world asset tokenization. That's just the start of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those projects and those thinkers are here in Paris this week, and we're talking to them, and it's so exciting. So I would say, you know, this is just the start of something very big, and we're not going backwards. I think the banks have got some real challenges ahead in terms of how we're making. I've heard conversations today. We know this already about how the banking rails are going to be altered. So people are making overseas payments in crypto assets as well. Time and money saved, building new infrastructures. And that's the thing that I'm taking away again, and it's a reminder to everybody, we're building infrastructure here, which will replace legacy infrastructure. Some of that is 50, 60 years old. Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, not to go too off topic, but I was just trying to do a transfer through the traditional banking system. It took like a week and a half. I was like, what is going on? I mean, like...
So there's still a barrier there, because we know, you and I know, if you send me $1,000, thank you very much, which I'm hoping you're going to do soon.
Yes.
It will take minutes if we do it through over the blockchain. But there's still a barrier there, because I'm going to have to share with you a very elongated address, wallet address. So as a company, we're trying to solve that. So there's still some barriers there, big education pieces. But this is going to be the way of the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I was just like, why is this still going on? But You have these banks in the middle, and they're probably not very incentivized, to be honest, to solve these issues, right?
Well, they're disincentivized because if you look at the flow of funds between sending money, say, from the UK or to Dubai to the US, you're sending them through several banks and correspondent banks, and it's a very inefficient process. You do it through the blockchain, and I'm sending it from me to you directly.
Yeah.
And it's so much cheaper, and it's so much quicker as well.
It's crazy, yeah. I'm not going to name any of the names, but I mean, I've used some of these like crypto native wallets to do it, and even that process was clunky and whatnot. And I'm just like, there's just like, once we reduce some of this friction, though, the technology is magical and it's going to change so many people's lives.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, the blockchain is not just about financial services; it's touching in other areas as well, like healthcare. The legal department, the legal industry as well.
Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to, if I wanted to buy a house off you, and we could do it through a smart contract? I don't suppose the lawyers are going to be too happy then, because it's going to challenge their roles.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with like trying to find who has title and all that process is it's expensive, it's clunky. Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, there's just all these things that are cause friction in our lives that could be quickly erased. And then the goal of all these technologies is that we're going to have more free time to enjoy life, and right?
Who can complain about that?
Right?
But it's got to be balanced with regulation, though.
Right, exactly. Is there a trend or development discussed here at Paris Blockchain Week that has you more excited than ever about moving forward?
So what I'm hearing a lot of people do, and I apologize, I talk about regulation a lot.
Yeah.
Is people talking about European regulation and MiCA. Some people are finding it a struggle because it's, their organization is still relatively immature, and some people are going, it's the best thing that's happened in crypto. So there's a balance that has to be had there, but I think it's a great opportunity now too. And why is it a great opportunity? Because obviously my background is working in Europe a lot, but we're going to see this one framework, regulated framework, this movement away from working in silos. And so we'll have a lot more clarity. But the other thing that's really exciting as well I'm seeing is, again, talk about stable coins, use of stable coins.
Yes.
Which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that is exciting. I'm curious, I'm American, but I mean, how important is American policy in all this? Is it very important?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Look what's happened in the last few months with the new administration. Donald Trump's come in, President Trump's come in. We've seen the changes at the SEC. We've seen some of those crypto firms which were facing historic legal battles. Some of those things being resolved now. He's creating a reserve fund in crypto.
Yes.
Again, like we talked about earlier, we talked originally about how firms were avoiding servicing the US marketplace because of fear of maybe being considered as a security in the Howey Test.
Yes.
And now we're talking about the president who launched his own meme token. Who would have thought about that?
That was wild.
That's crazy.
That was wild.
So now firms are going, hey, we can enter the US market with more confidence.
Yes.
So what does the regulation look like there? How can we tap into this super large market?
Yeah.
That's a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah. When he did that, that was wild. I was like, wow, he went way, way in the deep end. And I think it's doing okay. I don't know. I haven't I don't know how it's doing. I think then his wife did one at the same time, and I believe his son may be doing one soon too, which is crazy.
As we say, when Lambo.
When Lambo. So let's quickly wrap up things. So, how important is it navigating these Web3 regulations? Just for anybody that's unclear.
It's important because. Again, what's the motivation behind regulation? It's market stability and consumer safety. So we still see countries now which maybe don't have a regulatory framework, but a regulatory framework is coming in. So we can expect that to be the case going forward. Gone are the days when things were unregulated.
Yes.
We have to embrace that. So it's about understanding that and being prepared as organizations. And it doesn't have to be too burdensome.
Yes.
We just need to navigate in ahead of time and find the right place to go to.
Are most countries following a very similar kind of framework with these regulations, or?
Yeah, so it depends really on where you are. I mean, we see some countries like, let's give Gibraltar as an example. Gibraltar is I think a very pragmatic framework where it's not prescriptive as such. It's based on regulatory principles. I think it's 10 or 11 regulatory principles where the regulator says, look, well, this is how we expect you to act, and let's talk about your business model, how it should be. And that's not too prescriptive, where in other countries, it's very defined. Europe and MiCA is a bit like that as well.
Yes.
But you can certainly see that kind of overall ambition is what? Consumer protection and market stability, which is important.
If you were president of the United States, what would you do with the Howey Test right now? I agree.
Lemons and...
Yes. When you understand that that's the background of it, that just seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's 79 years old, I think it is.
I assume that has been brought to his attention to maybe revisit that, right?
I'm sure it will have been, yeah.
Yes. So what are you most excited about for the future of Freedex and blockchain?
Well, for Freedex and blockchain, interesting, we're building our own layer 1 blockchain.
Wow.
So, yes, in the one sentence you've hit two things on the head there. So for Freedex, what are we looking forward to? We are looking forward to launching soon. We'll launch in the next 2 months. We'll be global facing, and we'll have a number of strategic partnerships in place, which will enable us to offer quite a broad suite of products, including some of the exotic products as well, like crypto derivatives.
Wow.
And spot and swap. But really, for us, what's really important is changing the user experience, making it more simplified, like we've talked about, but giving the best customer experience as well, like customer services. That's really important for us.
It's a lost art.
It is, but it's important as well.
Very important. It's very important. I've had some not so great customer service experiences lately, and I'm just like, wow. But then I've had a few great ones, and it just, when you have it, it just changes everything. It's just amazing. So I love the fact that you're focused on the human aspect, not only just the technology aspect. So what's the best way for people to learn about Freedex and all the amazing things you're doing? And then also about you, like, is LinkedIn the best place to follow you, or?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn. We're on. Yeah, people, please connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We do a lot of we produce a lot of articles on LinkedIn. We do a lot of educational pieces on LinkedIn.
Amazing.
We do like State of the Nation news articles on LinkedIn. Yeah. And this is prior to us going live, so you can meet us at great events like this.
Yeah.
We'll be at Token 2049 in Dubai. Some of my colleagues are in Hong Kong now.
Oh wow.
I'll be at Thailand Money 2020 in a few weeks, which is again traditional banking.
Yeah, I'm doing Money 2020. I'm speaking at Money 2020 in Amsterdam, actually. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd have been at Dubai and you brought your passport,
yeah,
I would have opened an account for you. That's how easy our KYC is.
Wow, that is amazing. I may have to take you up on that.
For sure.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being the first guest of
My pleasure.
The official Paris Blockchain Week podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.